Part 5, wherein little Magdalene makes good on her promises and truly becomes Fat Maggie Delight. What happened next indeed, you may query? Changes most extraordinary, as Fat Maggie endeavored to carry out her plans. Captain Chinook they did dump overboard on a tiny barren bump of sand in the great sea to survive as long as his plump reserves would sustain him. Then, as much as she was loath to see her dad depart her company, Magdalene knew his place was not on the sea any longer. Really, Da, you know a pirate ship is not the place for a cook who cannot bring himself to face the idea of cracking into the carapace of a crab to make his dinner. And so she set him up in a seaside town, promised him she would not drown, and would instead sail down to visit him in his new vegan restaurant as often as possible. Her crew were hard at work all the while, fixing the ship that had been so defiled under the command of the man they'd exiled at sea. Scrubbing, painting, decorating, rebuilding, gilding, fumigating, soon they were all luxuriating in the fine vessel they had unearthed. The Saucy Wench was what Maggie named her ship, and she proceeded then to equip the vessel with as much fine kip as she could muster. Ingredients of the most sumptuous sort: Flemish chocolate, Polivian port, emerald flameberries by the quart, and fiery phoenix eggs by the basket. Also, she laid in great stores of crystal goblets, silver plates galore, golden soup tureens, and bowls before they set off to sea anew. While most buccaneers would lay in supply of weapons, ammunition to defy their enemies, Fat Maggie's plans were much more sly indeed. She'd not fight her foes for what she did want. Instead, she would, with fine foods enchant, her enemies their wills supplant with luxuriant distraction. For while her foes ate food suffused in the magic with which Magdalene imbued her meals, how could they refuse Fat Maggie anything she did desire? So ran the plan, and so it came to be that the plan worked most effectively, and that Maggie overcame her foes so easily it could scarce be considered a fight. She'd keep her ear to the waves, listen for tales of boats bearing treasures, after which she would sail, and soon overtake as her swift sloop did prevail over most others. And once the other ship was in sight, instead of engaging in violent fight, Fat Maggie sent word the ship would be entertained for the night with a delightful feast. Surprised by this strange generosity, her foes would accept her offer most suspiciously, and Fat Maggie would begin with glee to prepare for the feast ahead. Pots would bubble, knives would fly, pans would sizzle, and by there'd be a meal fit to mystify her hapless prey. And were there any attempt made to refuse Maggie's invite, she would choose the most sumptuous bite of whatever quiche or stew she had chosen to make, and send over, most artfully placed, in a golden small bowl. As soon as the captain had a taste, word would be sent with great haste that of course Fat Maggie could extend her hospitality that night. With tongues a-drool in mouths open wide, the rival crew would watch as Saucy Wench came alongside. The rival ship and lines were tied to link the two. And then Maggie's crew, dressed to the nines, would clamber across with casks of myrrh wine and platters of fire-roasted doubloon-stuffed sea swine and bowls of sweet night shrimp dumplings, and jugs of oyster gravy, plates of cheese, hand-pressed from the milk of white manatees, and pots of sweetly tart sea cherries, cooked into a tasty compote, to be served on cakes as light as air, made from sugar-spun mermaiden's hair, and iced with a glaze made from the rare and wondrous honey pearl. Joy at this most incredible surprise, and would then fall at once to eating. And before long, every bowl would be cleared, every platter licked so clean that it appeared they'd never held medallions of pan-seared breast of auklet, drizzled with a seafoam reduction. And with every bite, captain and crew were suffused with a full-bodied warmth that built and grew and blossomed into great love for the mysterious she who had created these magnificent delights. And it was a love that grew and filled all who ate with a lusty thrill, just as Maggie with all her canny skill had planned. As Fat Maggie and crew moved amongst the flock, filling goblets, plates, bowls, and crocks, she dodged many a hand trying to squeeze a buttock from both wenches and blokes alike. She entertained many a proposition, too, for marriage, eternal love, a screw, and to all she replied, "Lovey, in a minute or two, but for now, my dear, have you tried my flambéed bamboo?" And with a wink and a smile she'd dodge away, back to the saucy wench she'd sashay, to wait while her magic had its final say, and for her moment to act. For soon the sailors would be overcome by their lusty thoughts, and each and every one would fall to the floor, at which point the fun would have truly begun. Clothes would be torn off, bosoms bare, bottoms heaving in the air, as an orgiastic lovemaking would ensnare all aboard the ship. And while the rival crew was thus disposed, Maggie and her own crew would poke their collective nose into the rival ship's treasure trove and strip it bare, and sail away into the night, the plundered unaware, until the cruel light of day did quell their lusty appetites, and showed them that the magnificent Fat Maggie Delight had fooled them all.